What's bubbling, magical people? Welcome back to the Witching Hour with Miss Merlin, where we like to talk about all things witchy and magical. Your one-stop source for everything spellcasting, ascension, magic, all of that good stuff. I'm Kimmy, aka Miss Merlin, High Priestess and Shamaness, medicine woman, psychic medium, and witch extraordinaire. So, let's jump on our broomsticks. Meet me in the Crystal Coven Room. Today, we are talking about something very exciting and very, very special to my heart. We are going to get into some of the Norse witches and myths, and we're going to talk a little bit about Freyja. And Freyja is my patron goddess. She's incredibly important to me. If any of you have followed my story, I had always kind of felt very disconnected, when I had tried to reach out to what was societal, like what you were supposed to, right? Jesus, God, all that. Because I was sent to Catholic school when I was a little girl. My dad's side of the family was Catholic, so just conditioned right in there. Even though my mom's side is where the Norse stuff comes from. But that's how, my dad was in control, and that's what he decided. So yeah, just conditioned right in there. But every time that I tried to reach out to them in moments of, upset or whatever you're going through, when you have those moments where you're kind of crying out for help to something beyond you, I was always with them met with silence, and that was always kind of depressing to me, because I had these gifts and I could hear things and feel things and see things, and I'm not getting any response from something higher. It's very hard to explain. There was a big disconnect there, and it made me question even my sanity for a while. Am I crazy? Is all the stuff that I'm hearing and feeling and seeing and all that, am I just nuts? Is that what's happening? But when I started to kind of go back to my ancestry and my roots and stuff and connect with Freyja, Freyja's the first goddess who answered me. And man, I felt her presence like nothing else. There's no question. And I've since had a lot more experiences with her, which I'm not going to share because they're mine, and they're really, really personal to me. So yeah, I'm going to leave that where that is. But she comes every time I ask her to. So I love her. And this episode is dedicated to her. So we're going to talk about it. So I told you guys about my Norse ancestry and where that all comes from. And I have an interesting little fact for you about that. So recently, I found this out. Pretty recently. But you actually may have heard of my great grandfather, because he was the most famous Viking in the world, Ragnar Lothbrok. It's so funny because before I knew, the show Vikings had come out on History. And I'm not one for violence, watching violence and stuff like that. I tend to kind of stay away from it. But I was so drawn to it. Even before it started, the previews for it and the hype for it that History Channel was doing and stuff like that, I was like, I need to watch that, And it became my favorite show. and it made me dive more into a lot of stuff, which was really cool. But then it was even more cool when, I done my DNA and stuff years ago, and we actually found some family members. My mom had a half brother we didn't know about, but then that led to me digging deeper and doing genealogy and a whole bunch of stuff, which led me to Ragnar, which I think is incredibly cool. And now that I've been able to kind of connect with him in the realms, from the other side, I really feel like Travis Fimmel, the actor who played him, was like really channeling when he was playing him, because the personality is very much the same. And it's interesting because he points out to me that I am quite like him too. Very like quirky and like odd, because he had that little bit of, but I've talked about that before, how certain artists, actors, singers, stuff like that, don't even realize they're channeling when they're doing certain pieces of art, which is what they're creating when they're creating these things. So it's really interesting because, like, on the show, if you've seen it, Ragnar starts out with Lagertha, who is my favorite. I love her. I idolize her. I think she's awesome. But she was based on a bunch of shield maidens from the time. She wasn't like actually a real person. And I was Team Lagertha from when the show started, and I was so mad, and I hated Aslog. Oh my god, I was so angry. Like I said, Team Lagertha. And then I banged out, and I'm sorry, grandmother, that is my great grandmother, Aslog. And she's actually the root of where my magic comes from. So I honor her, and I apologize publicly for all of my Team Lagertha behavior. Anyways, let's get into it, talking about beautiful Freyja. So Freyja is the goddess of death and rebirth, protection, love, fertility, magic, beauty. She is the mother of Seiðr, which is the Norse form of magic, which is divination, mostly divination, and shamanism. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people link shamanism to a more Native American type of rooting, which it does have a lot of there as well, but it actually goes farther back than that, and stems from Norse history. So some things that are associated with Freyja, definitely gold, anything gold, and the color gold, cats, also boars and pigs. So she was said to have a golden pig. It had golden bristles, and the pig's name was Hildisvini. And she also was said to have a golden chariot, which was driven by cats. So, I'm sure a lot of you are probably not familiar at all with any type of Norse mythology. So, I'm going to teach you a little bit. There are essentially two realms of the gods and goddesses. All right, there's the Vanir and the Aesir. So these realms were always at battle in the mythology until Freyja. Freyja is actually a member of both the Vanir and the Aesir. She started in the Vanir, okay, but she brought harmony to both realms. Freyja is the daughter of Njord, who is essentially like a sea god, And her mother is shrouded in mystery. So no one really knows. And going back through everything that's documented, you can't really find anything on the origins of Freyja's mother. But she does have a twin brother whose name is Freyr. And he's like a god of war, too. She had 2 daughters, although not much is known about them, Nas and Yersemi. She, like I said, is a master of Seiðr and the mother of shamanism and the original vulva. And vulva is not spelled with the U. Okay, I'm not talking about the woman's body part. Okay, it's O with the dots. Okay. So when she harmonized the Vanir and the Aesir, she shared her knowledge of this Seiðr magic with Odin. Now, Odin is the Allfather. Okay, he's like the god. Okay, for Norse stuff. All right. I'm not going to get into a ton about Odin today because I'll do a separate episode on that because he's really important to me too. But he gave his eye also for knowledge as well. He was very into divination and magic and shamanism and stuff as well. But also something others don't know about Seiðr, it's also about weaving the threads of reality, right? Having that power of divination so you can change what's coming almost, right? But that's manifesting, weaving the threads of reality. It's alchemy, right? So she had the power to manifest, which we will talk about when we get into some of the witches in Norse mythology, which a couple of them are said to be Freyja in disguise. And one of them, speaking of the manifesting, is the legend of Golveg. And she was a witch that is obsessed with gold, and getting more gold. And again, she had the power to manifest. So then the gods would go to her and she would fulfill their desires. And then when they got overcome with greed and, all these things, they blamed her because she was the one that gave it to them. But they asked for it, like, hello. We're going to get into some more about the story of Golveg in a minute. Freyja is also famous for her necklace, which is another myth that it was made by the dwarves of the cosmos, which they're very, very special dwarves. They're the best metal craftsmen, beyond this world, right? It's a gold piece, and it has blue stones. It's called Brisingamen, which means necklace gleaming like the sun. Now, the myth that surrounds the necklace, I'll go into it kind of briefly. I don't really like it, and I'll tell you why. So, as I mentioned, Freyja's necklace was crafted specially by the cosmic dwarves. All right. And she was said to have traded sex for the necklace. And then the story is that Loki found out about this, the trickster god, and he told Odin, the Allfather, of her promiscuity. And so Odin ordered Loki to steal the necklace to punish Freyja, of course, for her promiscuity. And so Loki, who is a shapeshifter, he turned himself, like he went into Freyja's chambers, and she was sleeping. She was laying on top of the necklace. So he turned himself into a flea, and he bit her on the cheek so that she rolled over in her sleep, and he could then steal the necklace. Now, this legend is actually said to be a smear piece by Christians when they started to take over and try to abolish paganism and belief systems, and tried to control everybody and convert everybody. So there were stories and legends and stuff like this done at like a smear piece, like I said, to make Freyja look like just a promiscuous goddess, yeah. Anyways, that's why I don't like that story. All right, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Valhalla, right? Even if you don't know what it is, you've probably heard that word before, right? So Valhalla is like one of the realms of the dead for Norse pagan beliefs, okay? There are two, actually. So there's Folkrangir, which is Freyja's, where Freyja's hall is, and then there's Valhalla, where Odin's hall is. And the Valkyries, which are like shield maidens, okay, ghosts, all right, they take the warriors that have fallen in battle, which it was a great honor, and that's how you wanted to die if you were back in that time, okay? You wanted to die on the battlefield to get into Valhalla. That was like the way to do it, all right? So the Valkyries handpicked the warriors who fell in battle and take them to Valhalla, where Odin's hall is, and they can feast with Odin and celebrate with Odin for all eternity and battle their fallen warrior friends again, and have lots of fun. And then in Freyja's area, in Folkrangir, it's a little more elusive on how to get into her realm. There's not really that much, not really that much on it, but it is said that warriors who maybe met their end in ways other than battle were taken to Freyja's realm. So, ones who would battle and then ended up dying of old age or of a plague or things like that. Or the women, right? Because not all the women fought as shield maidens and stuff like that. The other ones did a lot of other things. They kept everything going while the men were away, raiding or discovering or whatever it was they were doing. They ran those little villages and things like that. All right, so we are going to get into the stories of these witches. All right, so Gold Egg, who is known as the witch who could not be burned. She loves gold, as I said, to a detriment. Greed drives her. She thinks about it and nothing else. She's also known as Hyde, the wandering witch. She's all about wealth, control, greed, power, fear. So, as I said, the story is she went to Asgard, right? The ultimate, castle of the gods, where that is, okay? And they used her magic to manifest their desires, okay? Gold, power, control, greed, all of those things. So, like I said, they blamed her for that, and they thought she's too dangerous to stay. So, yeah, her fault, not ours, for being greedy or power mongering or fearful. Nope, blame her. So, what do? They throw her into a fire. But she stands tall, unharmed. Then they try again. Throw her into the fire again. She walks out again, smiling at them. They try a third time, and each time she rises from the ashes, stronger and more determined than she was before. So they know that they can't control her. And that kind of, the whole like seeking of power, control, the whole greed and all of that. So remember how I mentioned earlier that the Vinje and the Aesir were at war and Freyja harmonized them? Well, this is also said to be, I guess an incarnation of Freyja. I don't know, maybe her dark side. But, yeah. I know, sorry, it might be confusing. So, here she starts the war between the Vinje and the Aesir, and then she harmonizes it in another form. Okay, so during that war, it's equally matched for years and years and years, so no one can win. And this witch here, right, Hyde, she watches with glee, or Golvag, and her story becomes a tale of warning. Greed and a desire for power can only lead to terrible things. And some battles are never really truly over, and the scars of them can take years and years and years and years and years to heal. So it becomes, like I said, a tale. And way back in the old days, they did a lot of raiding and stuff like that, and looking for land. So that became a tale of warning for them. Like, don't let your drive for power and drive for greed and, drive you, right? So, anyways, that's Golvag. After the wars, she was said to be wandering. So just be a wandering witch. So tales about the wandering witch Hyde are still talked about to this day. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Groa. And Groa was like a healer, okay? So like the wise witch that lives out in the cottage in the woods, right? So she was known as the wise witch. Her expertise was with runes. She was a healer. She was known to be really intelligent. She did a lot of divination as well. So she was also a vulva and a practicer of Seiðr. Her magic was really admired by everyone, even the gods and goddesses. She could lift curses. She always helped those in need. She would use her runes to cast spells. She was known as like a powerful, caring mother figure. So the legend with her is that during these wars that we were talking about, she was called upon by the gods for help. This was different than the Aesir Vanir, but there was a bunch of wars that happened during this time. There was very, very badly people. Anyways, so she was called upon by the gods for help. Actually, it was Thor who is said to have gone to her. I believe this is also tied into the legend where his hammer was stolen, Mjolnir. So, yeah. But anyways, there's so many like weaving links here. We're not going to go into that because I'm talking about the witches today. Anyways, Thor went to Groa for help, to help the gods in this war, and she agreed. So she was very busy during this war. She was using her runes to cast a lot of spells to weaken the energy of the enemy, and put magic around the shields of the gods and goddesses that were fighting, and make them impenetrable. When anyone was wounded, she would heal them, and she was very crucial to their victory, because they did win. So the gods really honor her, and so Groa is really honored, really, really revered. She's known as the Great Witch who helped the gods in a time of need. And then when she returned back to the human realm, which is known as Midgard, okay? So when she returned back to the human realm and went back to her little witchy cottage, there's some other different legends that surround her at that time. There's one about her trying to heal a really famous warrior, but it didn't work out. And there's a lot of other ones of her just being very, very helpful and healing, and she's just very, very revered. And if you're a practicer of runes and you read runes or use runes in your magic, you would be familiar with the energy of Groa. Okay, next we're going to talk about Hulda, or Huld, who has very much like Snow White energy. So again, she is a forest witch, and she had a very magical little cottage in the forest. She's associated a lot with mushrooms. She also used runes. She talks to the trees and to the animals telepathically. Excuse me, one of her stories is that people came to her for help with spells and advice. She protects the forest and keeps nature in balance. So one time the land was in trouble. Dark clouds were covering the sky, strange things were happening, and the townspeople were very worried because the crops were dying, the animals were acting very strangely. So they knew that they needed some help, so they turned to Hulda. She already knew of the trouble, being that she had heard it from the animals in the forest that she speaks to, and she had discovered that a dark force was causing all the trouble, and it wanted to take over the land and make it a place of sadness and fear. This is super interesting, guys. I've had to pause twice now. 3 times, actually, sorry, because there's been sirens. There's been fire trucks going by. And I didn't want to catch it in the background because it was really loud. And as I'm telling this story about a dark force wanting to take over the land, yeah, everything happens for a reason. You can draw your conclusions where you want to draw them. But anyways, she discovered that this dark force was causing all the trouble, wanted to take over the land, make it a place of sadness and fear. So from the heart of the forest, where the magic was the strongest, she gathered in the center of a bunch of ancient trees, and she used her runes and spoke ancient incantations, and the ground began to light up and glow, and the Norse wheel appeared underneath her, like sacred geometry. If you're not familiar with that, sorry. I'm actually thinking about, I'm trying to figure out how to actually add video to this as well, so like I can show you stuff. All right. So she called upon the spirits of the forest and placed a powerful shield around the land, and the dark force could not break through it or penetrate the barrier. So the land began to heal, The animals relaxed. There's another siren. See? I'm going to leave it this time so y'all know. The land began to heal, crops began to grow, and the animals relaxed. The people rejoiced, and Hulda's power was celebrated and revered. So the lesson of her story is to respect and care for nature, obviously. I just want to say that whatever's going on that is causing all the sirens, I really hope everything is okay. And that nothing is happening. Nothing bad is happening. I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'm from a little town in Ontario called Aurelia. And we have a really historic downtown. Like, it's really old. The buildings are really old. There's actually an interesting little tidbit. There's secret rooms and secret tunnels that run underneath our town. So, really, really cool. Anyways, a whole corner of the historical art center and stuff was a part of it, which sucks. Went up in flames the other day. So it's completely gone. Just the whole corner of the street is gone. So I'm really hoping there's not another fire somewhere, because this is getting crazy. Crazy. Oh my goodness. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. Big lesson, obviously, spirit coming through, ringing a big bell in the form of fire alarms. Respect and care for nature. We have to keep the balance here. It's out of balance, and we need to help put, Mother Nature back into balance here. Okay, so next we are going to talk about Seiðr. And she is the wolf witch. She was feared by the gods. She's not as famous, so not as many people would have heard of her. She's also feared because she practices a lot of dark magic. She does have the ability to control nature, and she does have the ability to summon and command wolves. So the story of Seiðr is that a group of warriors happened upon her deep in the forest countryside, and they asked her for help. She agreed with the condition that they must respect her and the land. So they agreed, and she performed a ritual where she was dancing under the full moon and saying ancient incantations. She called upon the wolves, and the wolves came, and they guided the warriors and protected them from their enemies. So it is said that during the ritual, Seiðr shares with the warriors the importance of respecting nature and respecting the power of magic, even though she practices more on the dark side of things. But yeah, again, another lesson in living in harmony with nature and the consequences if you don't, really. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we are going to talk about Seiðr witches, or vulvas, like me. Yay. Okay, so the legend of how Seiðr started was that there was a young woman, and from research, there doesn't seem to be a name for her, but she was very, very gifted. So Freyja called to her, and she answered the call and went deep into the forest and deep into isolation, where she just connected with Freyja and learned all about Seiðr and channeled it directly from Freyja, learned all about the magic and the power of it, learned about the trances, the balance of good and bad, Okay, so that is where it is said to have derived from one single, beautiful, talented witch who was called upon by Freyja herself and given the information and then passed on. So, vulvas, and that vulva was the female version, okay? And it was for a male, it was just a seer, okay? So, the kings, leaders, so on and so forth, would usually have a vulva or a seer to advise them, right? Because before they would go on whatever battle or whatever it was, they would go and ask for advice. And the vulva or the seer would go into some sort of trance and have visions, and they would let them know the truth of outcomes, good and bad. So then at that point, the kings or the leaders, if the outcome was to be not so nice, they could then ask for the vulva to, intervene, because one of the vulva's powers is that she can twist the threads of fate, right? So, vulvas can change the weather, sense things that others cannot. They were respected and feared, see the future. They have the powers of divination, of connecting with spirit, of connecting to the gods themselves, especially Freyja. They try to keep the balance of good and bad. They do the trances, so very shamanic stuff. Plant medicine, also usually very wise with that. They were known as not to be angered. Also, they were masters of alchemy, as we talked about, twisting the threads of fate. And sometimes they had a reputation of being dangerous because of the dark abilities, right? They live on the edge of light and darkness. So, when the girl was in the forest learning from Freyja, the biggest lesson that she was meant to learn at that time was that magic can harm or it can heal. It requires a great responsibility. Fate and magic work together. Another one of those lessons was that, of course, that vulvas can alter fate, but one must think of the ripple effect of that. And is it a cause to get involved in, right? Because, again, they used to advise these leaders, and if the outcome wasn't so good, whoever at the time was in charge would ask them to intervene magically on their behalf so they would have a good outcome. But got to think of that ripple effect. And most of these vulvas and seers would speak prophecies in kind of mysterious and poetic ways. And they worked a lot also with the symbols of sacred geometry. So that is a little bit on some of the Norse witches. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because every witch has a story, and every story has its own magical aspect to it. So I know I usually do this on Thursdays, and Thursday, we've been getting a lot of snow where I live, and I already have a little bit of an issue with my back a bit, and I've had to do a lot of shoveling, and so it's tweaked that. So last Thursday, I couldn't move, and I was thinking, I was asking Spirit, what is happening here? I keep having these blocks and these things that keep getting in the way of my podcast, or to make me delay it sometimes. And am I not supposed to be doing it? Is this, are you trying to tell me something? And I think we're supposed to switch the day, because Saturday is the most magical day of the week. I was born on a Saturday under a full moon. So I think we're going to switch it to Saturday. Saturday is also a better day for me to guarantee that if I haven't gotten this done through the week, that I will have time on Saturday to do it and get it out there for you, because I really enjoy it and I like sharing these things with you. So I hope you like learning, and I hope also to see you next time. So again, we will be moving the witching hour to the most magical day of the week, Saturdays. Again, thank you all so much for letting me share a little bit of something that I love and that means so much to me with you all. It really, really is truly a gift for me. So I'll see you next time. Stay magical. Bye.